Hello listeners, and welcome to the first program in our series. Let us learn design and technology, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Nodi Iyambo, and today we are going to learn about the design and technology concepts. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can take notes of the key points. Energy is very important because one cannot do anything without it. In today's program, we are going to talk about the different forms of energy storage. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify and describe different forms of energy storage in use, namely kinetic energy, potential energy, thermal energy, electrical energy, chemical energy. Good morning, class.
Good morning, sir.
I see you are having a discussion on the different forms of energy, which is why we will be learning about energy and its different forms today. Can any one of you tell me what energy is?
Sir, energy is what causes things to happen in our everyday life.
Very good, Jaden. Energy is used in our everyday lives and makes things happen. Therefore, energy is used and stored in different forms as well. Would you tell me the forms of energy that you know?
Sir, I think we have potential, thermal, kinetic, electrical, and chemical energy.
Very well said, Kaylee. We are going to discuss the details of these forms of energy next. Do any of you know how kinetic energy is produced?
Yes, sir. This is the energy that is produced due to movement.
Correct. In short, we can say energy is produced in motion. Examples of kinetic energy is when someone is walking or running. It is due to the kinetic energy that movement is possible.
Interesting, sir. What about potential energy?
Potential energy is energy stored in an object or the potential of an object to do work.
Sir, for example, a rock at the top of a cliff has more potential energy than the one on the ground. It is because the rock at the top can drop off a cliff, converting the potential energy into kinetic energy due to gravity.
Very well said, Jaden. That was indeed a good example, and it shows that you understand as well. So can you tell me what thermal energy is?
Sir, thermal energy or heat energy is a form of energy produced when movement or vibration of particles in an object.
Right. A good example is the sun, or when fossil fuels are burned, heat energy is also produced. A rise in temperature causes the vibration of particles or molecules.
Sir, it is also said that thermal energy can be used to heat our houses. For example, power stream driven processes enable us to generate electricity.
Yes, of course. This brings us to electrical energy. You say that heat energy can be generated by electricity. So what is electric energy?
Sir, electric energy is a form of energy that transmits energy in form of electrical current flowing in a conductor.
And sir, this type of energy can be transmitted over a long distance.
All of you are right. This form of energy can be easily converted into other forms of energy needed. For the last form of energy, who can tell me what chemical energy is?
This is energy stored in specific substances, such as coals, gases, and oil, as well as in the food we eat.
That's right. Chemical energy is simply stored in variety of substances like those that Jaden mentioned. Also, chemicals in batteries, cells, also store energy which is then converted to forms such as light, sound, or heat energy, which is thermal energy. This brings us to the end of today's lesson.
So, before we close off, let me summarize what we have learned. Today we have learned the different forms of energy storage and how they are formed, as well as some of the examples.
Thank you, Kaylee, for summarizing our discussion of today. We have come to the end, and before we depart, here is a quiz for today. State any 4 sources of energy, and for each, state the main form of energy it provides. This program was written by Mrs. Naomi Koskenkangas. Have a good day and stay safe.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the second program in our series, Let Us Learn Design and Technology, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean Renichka, and today we're going to learn about metals, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, and alloys. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can take notes of the key points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Metals play an important role in our household utensils, from pots to spoons to burglar doors and so many more. But do we actually know how to group them into their categories according to their properties and structures, their uses, and their importance? I hope the debate between Ms. Nakalemo, a design and technology teacher, and her 2 sons will shed a little light on what we never knew about metals. At the end of this program, you should be able to collect and discuss a selection of locally used metals regarding types, ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, and alloys, properties of metals, and uses of metals.
Mom, yesterday Josh and I found out the other nail cutter that you have been looking for. It was under the sand behind the house. I am sorry, Mom, but it has rusted because it has been there for almost a week now.
It has contacted oxygen while it was in the sand.
What are you talking about, big brother? What do you mean that it has contacted oxygen?
Calm down, my boys. Get yourself a chair and sit by the dining table. Let me teach you a thing or two about what Joshua is talking about. We have 2 types of metals, which are ferrous metals and non-ferrous metals. We also have something called an alloy. Do you know what the alloy is? Have you ever wondered why spoons made out of aluminium do not rust easily, while the nut and bolts rust easily if left out in the sun? This is because a spoon doesn't contain iron and doesn't rust easily if exposed to oxygen, and it's resistant to corrosion. But bolts and nuts rust easily because they contain iron, which can combine with oxygen in the air and form rust.
Oh, I knew that rust can be caused by the mixture of oxygen and iron. But mommy, what is an alloy?
Josh, an alloy is a mixture of two or more metals or non-metals. For example, padlock, it is made out of brass, which is a mixture of zinc and copper, man.
Yes, exactly, my boys. You guys are smart. Brass is used for castings and water fittings. Let us look at some of the properties of ferrous and non-ferrous metals and alloys. Let us first look at the ferrous metals. For example, mild steel has some properties such as it is tough and ductile, it bends readily, meaning it's malleable, but fractures when bent repeatedly, which means it is brittle.
But mommy, I have another question. What are the uses of mild steel?
Josh, mild steel is used for bridges, wires, tubes, bolts, and nuts. We also have non-ferrous metals such as aluminium, which is light in weight, malleable, and ductile, resistant to corrosion, and takes a good polish, and it is difficult to solder. As an example of an alloy, we can look at bronze, which has properties of being highly resistant to corrosion, yellow in color, and sometimes it is brown.
Mom, is a Namibian dollar made out of bronze?
Yes, James. I wish I could teach you more about metals, but we need to learn through a practical. One day, I will take you to my school and teach you more. Can somebody please conclude what we've learned today?
Yes, I can, Mom. Let me do that, Mommy. Today I have learned about types of metals, which are ferrous and non-ferrous metals and alloys too. A ferrous metal contains iron, they rust easily, and their magnetic examples are mild steel and stainless steel. A non-ferrous metal doesn't contain iron, and they are resistant to corrosion. For example, aluminium and copper. An alloy is a mixture of two or more metals. For example, we have bronze and brass. We also learned about the uses of different ferrous, non-ferrous metals, and alloys.
And that brings us to the end of our program. But before we say goodbye, here's our quiz for today. State two main categories of metals. State two examples of each of the following: ferrous metals, non-ferrous metals, alloys, and list any 4 uses of metal. This program was written by Ms. Naomi Koskenkangas.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to the 3rd program in our series, Let Us Learn Design and Technology, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean-André Nitschke, and today we're going to learn about conservation, renewable and non-renewable sources. Please have a pen and a notebook ready so that you can take notes of the key points. And please don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Water is life. Isn't that so? But what would life be without water and other non-renewable resources that are important to us? Let us look at what conservation, renewable and non-renewable resources means. At the end of today's program, we should be able to research and compare concepts, renewable and non-renewable resources, identify and describe ways to conserve resources.
Yesterday I found kids playing with water, and it hurts because water is life.
Water is important because without water, we won't be able to live. All organisms depend on water for survival.
And water might not be adequate enough in years to come if not sustained. Let's go to the lesson and ask what the teacher thinks about all this.
Good morning, learners.
Good morning, ma'am.
Today we're going to learn about conservation, renewable and non-renewable resources.
Oh, really, ma'am? I've seen some kids playing with water yesterday, and it really hurt my feelings a lot.
Yes, ma'am. And water is something that may run out if not sustained well.
Calm down, my learners. It's true that water may run out if not conserved well, but it's not only water. We have other resources that can finish if they are misused. First, let us look at the term conservation. Does anyone know what this means?
I'll try. Conservation is the sustainable use and protection of natural resources with the future in mind.
Yes, ma'am. Natural resources such as water, soil, climate, and plants.
Yes, girls, that's correct. Our natural resources are grouped into two categories, which are renewable and non-renewable resources. From research, we learned that renewable resources can be replaced over and over again when they are used up, while non-renewable resources cannot be replaced. Once they are exhausted, they can only be replaced over a very long period of time.
I don't get it. If water is a renewable resource, how can it run out if it's misused?
Well, Erica, water can never finish, but it can become scarce.
But ma'am, how can we conserve water?
We should avoid cutting down trees because they help through transpiration, which contributes to the rainfall, which provides water. So let us look at ways how we can conserve natural resources, such as recycling, reusing, and reducing. What is recycling, reusing, and reducing?
Recycling means turning raw materials into useful products in order to keep the environment clean. Reusing is the conserving way of using a product for a different function. Example, using cool drink bottles into water bottles to put in the fridge.
And reducing is the action of minimizing the materials by making your product lighter in order not to waste materials.
Those are good answers from you both. We've covered all that is needed in today's lesson. Would somebody wrap everything up for us?
Yes, ma'am. Today we learned about what renewable and non-renewable resources are. We also learned about conservation and ways on how to conserve our natural resources.
That brings us to the end of today's program. But before we say goodbye, here is the question for today. Define each term and give an example for renewable resources, non-renewable resources, and what is conservation. This program was written by Ms. Naomi Koskenkangas.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the fourth program in our series, Let Us Learn Design and Technology, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else who has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean-André Nitschke, and today we're going to learn about safety precautions with regards to HIV and AIDS. Please have a pen and notebook ready so that you can take notes of the key points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Safety is the most important thing that one always has to put up with when doing something, not only in the workshop, but in one's life as well. In today's program, we're going to talk about how to take care of an HIV and AIDS infected and affected person. At the end of today's program, you should be able to describe appropriate ways to care for HIV and AIDS infected and affected, including moral support and counseling, taking medication on time, a healthy diet, apply appropriate ways to handle open wounds and bleeding. Good morning, class. Good morning, ma'am. I see you are busy discussing ways to care for an HIV and AIDS infected patient. Today we're going to talk about safety precautions on taking care of HIV and AIDS infected patients. Can anyone tell me how one can show support to an infected person?
We can do this by showing them support and giving them love.
We can also stay with them, like we have to play with them so that they can't feel abandoned, or maybe so they can't feel alone.
You guys are all correct. What affects most people infected by HIV is stigma. When patients or infected people are stigmatized, their health can deteriorate very fast. An infected person needs to be shown love and given support, as well as be in an environment where they will not be demoralized. This helps boost their morale and keeps them from feeling alone.
So, ma'am, when one is HIV positive, what's given to them to prolong their lives?
Good question, Lempi. When a person is positive, they are given some ARVs or ARTs that they need to be taking every day. This medication will help them live longer.
So, Miss, does this mean that some of us just get infected, or we are maybe old already, and you are not used to taking these ARVs? What if I forget to take them? What will happen?
Well, of course it's very problematic if you forget to take your medication. It's very important that positive people take their medication on time, and they are not to be missed at all. At the hospitals, these people go through counseling and are told the importance of taking their medication on time.
And I also heard that during counseling, they're always encouraged to continue living their normal lives and not feel different from others.
It's also said that HIV-infected people need to live a healthy life. This is by they need to exercise. They can't just be home sitting there doing nothing since they are affected. They also need to eat a healthy, balanced diet, so that they can get all the nutrients.
Those are very good answers, learners. The points that you gave are all correct. And not only that, there are people around them that are affected too.
So, Miss, when you talk about people being affected, who are these people?
Well, Lempi, family members that are dependent on the person who is infected because of their status. Some of the things they usually do change, which may affect those dependent on them.
Miss, in case where an infected person is injured. How is one supposed to handle the situation since maybe she or he is breathing?
You all learned that HIV is spread when one gets in contact with bodily fluids of an infected person, right?
Yes.
So in such cases, one has to apply first aid following all the important steps. Who can tell me how she or he would apply the safety precautions?
Well, one has to wear protective rubber or latex gloves before handling any open wound.
If the wound is bleeding, one should rinse the wound first with running water, if possible, or maybe use an antiseptic like Savlon or Dettol to clean it.
Very impressive. You are all correct. When handling open wounds, one must never use bare hands, but put on rubber gloves, and if not available, then one can cover the hands with a plastic bag. It's very important to prevent making contact with bodily fluids of an infected person.
Mrs. Klassen, you've really helped us understand more about the safety precautions as well as finding a conclusion to our debate.
Yes, indeed. Miss, let me conclude on what we have learned today. We learned the appropriate ways to care on HIV infected and affected people. We also have learned the importance of boosting their morale, the importance of making sure. We also learned that the importance of making that they take their medication on time, the use of gloves when handling open wounds or bleeding. And lastly, we have also learned, we learned keeping healthy with a healthy diet.
Well summarized, Elweno, and thank you for participating in the discussion, learners. This brings us to the end of our lesson today. But before we go, here's a little quiz for the day. Describe appropriate ways to care for an HIV-infected person. Which appropriate ways can one use to handle open wounds and bleeding? Have a blessed day ahead and stay safe. This program was written by Miss Naomi Koskenkangas. So until next time, take care.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.
Listeners, and welcome to the 5th program in our series, Let Us Learn Design and Technology, which is produced for grade 9 learners and anybody else that has an interest in the subject. My name is Jean-Ray Nitschke, and today we're going to learn about power tools and NOSA regulations. Please have a pen and notebook ready so you can take notes of the key points. And don't forget to take part in the quiz at the end of the program. Tools can be a workman's best friends if they are well looked after and taken care of. Isn't that so? Today we're going to focus on the safety precautions when doing minor adjustments to electrical power tools. At the end of today's program, you should be able to list safety precautions when doing minor adjustments, such as changes of plugs, adjustment of saw blades, handle safety regulations including correct selection of materials and finishes, making use of color association, etc.
It says Saki. I was so shocked when I found learners playing with the unprotected power cables.
Oh, that's too dangerous. That can lead to shocks or even deaths.
Yeah, that's true. We've seen people being killed by electricity. Let's go to class and see what the teacher has in store for us today.
Let's go.
Good morning, learners.
Good morning, ma'am.
Today we're going to talk about minor adjustments to electrical power tools. For example, changing of plugs, adjustment of saw blades, and also handling safety regulations about the correct selection of material and finishes, making use of our color association, such as red for danger. So, make completely sure that power is disconnected from the power source before attempting to do minor adjustments or hanging plugs on a power tool. Keep power cables and tools away from water, sand, or flammable substances. Cables must be well insulated.
I was telling Saki today how I found learners playing with unprotected power cables.
Yes, miss. It's very dangerous, and one of those kids could be shocked to death or maybe shocked and get paralyzed.
Calm down, learners. Let's try and see how we can solve this problem.
Okay, ma'am. How can one reduce such risks in society?
Good question, Patrina. Well, we just have to make sure that all cables are safely secured.
What can happen if I happen to remove a cable from a loose circuit?
That's a very dangerous move, Saki. Anything can happen during that period. You could get shocked, or the bulb may burn if it's connected to the bulb, or even the wires could also burn.
Interesting. So now how about the correct selection of materials?
Miss, and also the finishes too.
Very good question, learners. When selecting the material, one should take the following factors into consideration. They are: is it readily available? How available is it to the consumers? Is it cost effective? Will the consumers afford the product? Is it environmentally friendly? This is very important. Does it cause any pollution or endanger people's health, etc.? It is also important that the designer considers properties like the melting point, magnetism, and the ability to add color, as well as ease of working. As for finishes, one should consider lead-free. Lead is responsible for lead poison, and that they are non-toxic, as some points contain toxic ingredients. Any more questions, learners?
Yes, miss, I have one. I really want to know the use of the color association.
Patrina?
Well, Saki, just look at the traffic signs, but now here we refer to the design and technology language, meaning red means danger, blue means mandatory, yellow means warning, and green means informatory.
Wow, thank you very much, Petrina. Now I get the knowledge and I can conclude that. And today we have learned the safety precautions when doing minor adjustment on electric tools, and also handling of safety regulations, including correct selections of materials and finishes, making use of color associations. For example, red for danger, and the scar with closed bones for also danger also sometimes.
Thank you, learners, for participating. Before we say our goodbyes, here's the quiz for today. Which one is associated with the warning in the workshop? A, blue, B, green, C, red, or D, yellow? explain why it is a must to wear protective clothing in the workshop. So until next time, take care. This program was written by Ms. Naomi Koskenkangas.
This program was brought to you by NAMCOL with funding from the Ministry of Education, Arts and Culture and the Commonwealth of Learning.